You keep telling yourself, once I hit that milestone, then I'll finally breathe. This is your reminder. The milestone isn't the most powerful part. The miles are, because who you become on the way is what makes the milestone inevitable. Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to SoulSHINE. I had a conversation with a colleague of mine, and I wanted to bring it into this space. This colleague, she is so incredibly thoughtful and devoted and excellent. Her name is Gina. Shout out to you. And I see her as extraordinary. I see her as powerful, driven, purposeful, capable. And she's in a stage where she's early in her career and hasn't yet achieved any of those external markers that would validate any of that identity that I could so clearly see in her. And it just reminded me so much of when I was also in my early years and I only saw myself through my own lens of all my deficits. And I discounted all of my strengths as a fluke or no big deal. And it's not like I ever outgrew that because now I have new goals and new heights and I still want to climb. And I still sometimes, many times, see myself separate from them. And we had a conversation and I just really wanted to reflect back to her, despite all of her challenges that she held, how incredible she is. And just to remove all the labels of everything she thinks it should look like and remember her own power. And so I ended up sitting down after that conversation and I just wrote a poem in my office for a few hours. And I'm actually going to share it at the end of the episode. I think it's beautiful. And it's what inspired this conversation today, this contemplation. Because if you're someone who's especially capable, you're responsible, you've learned how to function, how to perform, how to move forward no matter what, and yet you feel like you're not exactly where you want to be, you don't see life reflected back to you exactly how you want it to be, maybe you even have a feeling that life is happening near you but not fully through you, this episode's for you. Today, we're naming that cost of waiting to live and how to reclaim your power in the middle before that proof shows up. So here's how we're going to break this down. First, why we are addicted to milestones and what it costs us. Second, the tension that causes as we wait for permission and proof. And third, a simple practice to help you live the miles right now before the milestone arrives. So before we get all the way there, let's name what this actually feels like. It's not like dissatisfaction exactly. It's not lack of gratitude for all of your life and how beautiful it is. It's more kind of like that feeling that something is just out of reach. So maybe this is you. You tell yourself, once I get there, once this settles, once I have that title, that role, that certainty, okay, then I'll breathe, then I'll live, then I'll let myself be who I really am. Things will get easier. People will respect me. People will do what I want. The answers will be clear. I'll feel confident. I'll feel successful. I'll feel satisfied. And I'm going to take it back through the lens of that conversation to take me back to the moment. But it's like as we were naming all of these external things that were holding her strength hostage, all I could think about was like, dang girl, all I see is your strength because it's hard. All I see is your power because you chose your own path. All I see is your clarity because of things being so uncertain. All I see is your self-respect because it's silent out there. All I see is your leadership because you went first. So again, I'm going to share the full poem at the end. These are just like snippets of it, and I want to get us there. And I know that this isn't just her experience or my experience. So many of us live for the milestones and we don't realize we're missing the miles, the very thing that makes the journey worthwhile. Because without the miles, there will be no milestones. This is it. The miles is it. We dream about the milestones. We plan for it. We celebrate it. We put them on our vision boards. We work towards them. We save up for them. And I'm not saying that isn't important or beautiful. It absolutely is. And can we stay awake to the life of right now? Because if not, we miss half of it, maybe the majority of it. We miss the life that's right here. And that's what rarely gets named. That waiting to live, it has a cost. I'm going to pause for a second because if this is speaking to you, I need you to come on this journey with me and with all the brave souls that are doing this work. Subscribe so we can keep having these conversations and we don't lose you. We need you. We need you to be your brightest, fullest self. Okay, let's go back to the cost, because what the cost actually looks like is not always like dramatic, and it can actually be really subtle. We might not even notice it. It's when we postpone our lives until it looks a certain way and we slowly disconnect. We get so good at getting through our days, efficient, capable, a little less alive. Happiness might become conditional, Presence becomes postponed. We tell ourselves that we'll feel that later. Let's keep moving. And that ache isn't because we're ungrateful for our big, beautiful lives. In fact, I don't know about you, but I'll even judge myself. Why do I feel this way when I have so much? I am grateful for my life, for my health, for my loved ones, for my career. And yet, what is it that I'm still waiting for? And I want to say that living right now before you arrive, it isn't indulgent. Science shows us that it's actually how motivation sustains itself. When we act from authenticity instead of approval, we live sustainably. So self-determination theory shows us that it's autonomy and competence and meaning that fuel sustained motivation and well-being. So when we're waiting for permission or proof, we're starving all three. We ache for our lives. And now that you can see that cost, I want to keep going with you, because this isn't just about goals. This is about who you are. At the center of this ache is this tension about who we were, who we are, who we're becoming. And in the last episode, we talked a lot about narrative identity, about self-continuity, about seeing ourselves from different points of view, how that perception changes the view of ourself and our life, and how such a simple shift can allow releasing that stress of uncertainty and exhaustion and control, and allow us to open up to life with more ease, with more surrender and trust. That was episode 36. I'm going to link it in the show notes. It's a great companion. And that was more an exercise of looking at ourselves from the outside in, looking at ourselves as the chapters being written as an outside reader. So now what we're going to do is do the exercise of being inside of our lives, even while that chapter is still being written, not needing to change the chapter, just changing how we live it from the inside of it. So as you're in the middle of your chapter, in the middle of your becoming, in the middle of your shift, it's that tension between who you were and who you believe you're allowed to be later. Later when the title matches it, later when the influence expands, later when the evidence arrives. But the truth is, identity doesn't magically change once you arrive at the milestones. It is shaped in the in-between. It's in living the miles. It's in the quiet of the ride. Or as you're belting out to the song lyrics, or, you get lost. Or maybe it's when you stop to refuel. Maybe it's the stranger that you meet along the way. What about the boring stretch? The stretch where you witness the most gorgeous landscapes that make you pull over. And yet, this is where we get stuck, because we've been taught implicitly that our freedom, our expression, our leadership, our power, our self-acceptance comes from permission. But who or what gives us that permission? Usually we're taught it's the proof of the role, the proof of the title, the proof of the recognition, or whatever external confirmation there is. And then it's okay. You can accept yourself, you can be free, you can be expressed, you can be who you are. So we wait to lead, we wait to speak, we wait to trust ourselves, we wait to live our lives. What if we reframed it in a way that changed everything? That you don't need to become who you are after the milestone. You become it along the way. There is science to this idea that identity leads behavior, not the other way around. When something feels like who you are, your nervous system, it's open to it. and it allocates energy to go there. It's called the identity value model, and the citation will be in the show notes. It explains why waiting for permission or proof keeps people stuck. If an identity isn't like claimed, the brain doesn't assign it any value. So you don't have any motivation to be that person, to do those tasks. If you live as if, that activates an identity-based motivation system. The milestone then simply becomes like this external reflection of an internal shift that has already happened, an internal ownership, an internal declaration and belief of who you are. That's when the milestone becomes inevitable. It's just a matter of time before you see it in the physical as the milestone. And that brings me to explore that word, milestone. You guys know I love to deconstruct the dictionary. It's where we wake up to these inherited beliefs and words that are so loaded. So the dictionary defines milestone as this: to mark the distance in miles to a particular place, or an action or event marking a significant change or stage in development. I don't know about you, but I heard some limitations there. So the first part of the definition is mark the distance in miles to a particular place. We just named that we so often unconsciously make that particular place something external to us. What is that particular place? The title, the outcome, the goal, and how we wait to live our fullest self or fully live our lives until we get that thing, as if the milestone is our permission slip. When I struggled with this the most, there was one woman who completely disrupted all of this for me. She was a couple years ahead of me, but she was still considered early in her career. She had no formal leadership title. She was still becoming an expert in so many ways. But this woman was hungry to grow her excellence. And despite being like the least in so many ways as measured by the outside world, she acted like a leader in every way that mattered. She was deeply invested in patient outcomes. She was invested in how teams functioned and how they could function well and optimize. She was an advocate for change that served more than just herself. She collaborated, she challenged systems respectfully. She championed causes that other people avoided. Like everyone knew she was the one you went to when something meaningful needed to shift, not because she was appointed, but because she was embodied leadership. Leadership isn't a role that's handed to you. It's a way of engaging with what's in front of you. Leadership is something that you can see she practiced, like even in her body, her posture, her action, her engagement, before it ever became an official role. And there's science to that too. It's actually called embodied cognition research. And it shows that identity and cognition are grounded in sensory motor experience. That means that leadership becomes real because it's lived mind, body, spirit. It's not just in her imagination. It was her. She lived it in her body and her self-expression and the way she moved and the way she had swagger in a room, even without the title. She lived as a leader, even when she was in the miles. She didn't let the lack of evidence stop her or define her. She let her courage, her conviction, and her truth guide her. And then the leadership title, the platform, the support, the milestones, of course they became inevitable. It just took time for those miles to rack up and for everyone else to notice that she'd already arrived on the inside, and then the outside matched the inside. But again, that was only because she had already arrived as she was on the journey. Okay, I'm still at the definition of milestone. That was only one limitation, was like that marker to an external place. So let's dive into the second definition of milestone. And it said, an action or event marking a significant change or stage in development. The most interesting word that I find in that sentence is the word significant. Like the inherent bias is that significant has to be big in quantity or has to be seen by others. And that's another limitation that prevents us from fully living the miles leading up to the milestone. But what if significant was meaningful, no matter if it impacted one person or many people? Like for example, we make the power of one feel so much smaller than the power of a group. Like if I only touched one person, if I only served one person, if I only supported one person, man, I would judge that as less impactful than touching many, than serving many, than supporting many. And yes, of course, the gift of many is amplifying your service, your message, your innovation. And it has more of a chance to have a ripple effect. And also, can we stay awake and conscious to where that judgment keeps us at our smallest? Like, oh, if I can't impact the many, then why would I even bother with impacting one? How does that shrink me? How does that put the brakes in the middle of my journey? I'm not getting any closer to that milestone if that's how I'm living. Leading my life, leading your own life is no lesser than leading others. It's foundational. How can I see it? That serving one person is the whole key to unlock serving more people. It's not less than, it's just compounding. So believe in your capacity. Even when you haven't arrived to the milestone, believe in your ability to pivot. Believe in your ability to imagine the possibilities where none are obvious. Even as you live in the miles. The miles is where that belief goes from theoretical to being built through the action of living them, of living the miles. There's science to this too. Confidence isn't something we think our way into. It's something we build by doing. That belief in ourselves strengthens after we take action, not before. That's self-efficacy. It's built through mastery experiences, not through affirmation, not through visualizations, not for waiting for proof. Acting as if works because action creates evidence, not because of positive thinking. And we already know the power of evidence in our thought model. So my friends, you have permission, even without the proof. No matter where you are in your journey, you are allowed to live your life before it looks finished. You're allowed to feel joy in the middle of uncertainty. You're allowed to embody leadership before anyone calls you one. You don't need to wait to be powerful. You don't need to wait to be expressed. You don't need to wait to feel satisfied or successful. Yes, the destination matters. You know where you want to go. Let's go. But also make the journey matter. Let people judge you by what's not there. Let them measure you by what's not there. It's okay, but let yourself judge and measure by the most epic journey that you know you're living. The music playing, the wind through the windows blowing on your hair, the stillness sometimes, the contemplation, the way the light shifts through the trees, the way you trust in the journey. Yes, of course, the destination will matter, but it can't teach you how to live. Only the miles can do that. Those miles have their own beauty, their own vantage point, their own magic. And those moments can't be recreated once you arrive. When we numb ourselves until we arrive, we miss the very experiences that make the arrival meaningful. So right now, ask yourself, if I fully trusted who I am becoming, how would I show up today? Notice that shift. It's not pretending. You can be rehearsing, and that rehearsing creates the evidence. I've spent years walking with people in the moments where performance falls away. And what I've learned is this: no one wishes they had waited longer to live. What people remember are the moments when they were present, the times they chose themselves, whether that was boldly or quietly and no one knew, but they knew. The way they lived honestly, even before they felt ready. If you feel this ache, you are not behind. You are remembering something true, and we are with you. And once you see that, the question becomes simple. What does it look like to live the miles now before the milestone arrives? So let's take that question. Let's make it practical right now. Don't miss right now, this mile, this moment, today. Choose one way to live, like the woman or the man you believe you are becoming. It doesn't have to be announced to anyone. It doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be real. Let that be enough. Let that be your freedom, your expression, your satisfaction. I want to close with the poem that inspired this episode, inspired by my beautiful colleague, Gina, by the power I saw in her, the courage, the conviction, the dedication, the beauty. And my wish is for each one of you to remember who you are, not defined by the milestones, but in those miles, the journey of you. I want to give you a different kind of reflection this week, not something to think, but to feel. It's called She Who Defines Herself. Remember the truth of who you are, that nothing defines you, that you have the power to define it and yourself. You are powerful, not because others obey, but because no matter what they do, you choose your destiny anyway. You are strong, not because things come easily, but because even when heavy, you lift it anyway. You are magical, not because life always works out, but because even when there's no evidence, you believe anyway. You are courageous, not because there is no fear, but because instead of running from it, you run toward it anyway. You are an advocate, not because they listen, but because even when it's unpopular, you champion it anyway. You are a visionary, not because the answers are clear, but because even when the problem seems unsolvable, you imagine possibilities anyway. You are respected, not because you feel respected, but because even when others don't see your worth, you stand in it anyway. You are a leader, not because others follow, but because even when there is no path, you make one anyway. You are unstoppable, not because you've reached the end, but because even when you could have settled, you rise again anyway. So, be all you dare to dream, all you were born to be. Don't be defined by what the world says about your circumstances, but by your ability to birth their meaning. Remember who you are. No praise, success, or title can add to you. No failure, shame, or silence can take away from you. Come home to yourself, not to change the world around you, but to become the woman who can. And then the world changes as a byproduct of who you are. My beautiful souls, for our ending tradition, here are questions for you to take with you. Where in your life are you postponing permission? Who are you waiting to become before you let yourself act? Where could you live a little more anyway this week? What would change if you stopped waiting to arrive? And as you move forward, remember, no title can add to you and no failure can take away from you. Come home to yourself, not to change the world around you, but to become the person who can. And then the world changes as a byproduct of who you are. Let's go. This is a movement. Comment miles if you're choosing to live it now. And let's see how many miles we can rack up between all of us. Because maybe my little car can only go so many miles and your little car can only go so many. But if we put those miles together, oh my God, what could we achieve? Let's go. Let's live it. Let's live the miles. Let's define the journey. I am wishing you all play, possibility, and peace. I am wishing you to feel supported in this space. And I'm so freaking honored to be on this journey with you as part of your soul tribe, living the miles. I'm sending you so much love, and I'm going to see you next week. Bye.